Let me introduce myself by asking you this. How would you define someone who is mad? Would it be somebody who is sadistic? Somebody who hurts others and gets pleasure from it? Is it somebody who is masochistic? In your twisted mind, is it somebody who is cannibalistic? Somebody who eats the flesh of other humans? Or perhaps it is somebody who does not feel the pain of others, absent of compassion. I had been accused of all of those things. Does that make me mad? Perhaps. But I can tell you this. Others have most certainly thought me to be mad. That is how I ended up here in this prison for the criminally insane. But insanity is not a bad thing, my friends, no. That is what kept me from the gallows. Instead, they squirreled me away in here, in this prison, with others of the maniacal madness just like me. But just because I may have been mad does not mean I did not want my freedom, no. From the minute I stepped foot into my cell, I started to plan my escape. But I knew that I only had one chance. The warden so much as told me so. The rope swing, as he called it. An innocuous term, is it not? That's what he called the gallows. Was just a short ride just down the road. He made sure to mention it. Now, when planning my moves on the outside, as wonderfully complicated and complex as they were, that was child's play compared to planning my escape from inside here. Months I spent noticing the daily routine of prison life. The habits of the other inmates, their personalities and their idiosyncrasies, the guards' movements and their schedules. This was my homework. The business and social and political life of prison. And then, just like a researcher taking this information that I had studied, I started to plan my escape. But it seemed like every time I came up with a plan, it had to be scrapped for one reason or another. I will not bore you with the details of my failed plans. The months went by, and I reverted to the classic escape. I stole a spoon from the mess hall, and I started to scrape away at the old stone in my prison cell, underneath my bed, where the wall and the floor met. I was amazed at how easily the old concrete just flaked away like well-cooked meat falls off of a bone. Now, I was not a large man, but still I needed more space than the mouse hole that was forming. And so I scraped every single minute that I could, every single minute that the guards' eyes were not on me. 6 years passed. 6 years of scraping and scraping and scraping until my tunnel was large. Sometimes I would go down into my tunnel. I wouldn't even scrape at all. I would just go down there to be alone and to think, and sometimes just to scream. That's the good thing about being underground. Nobody can hear you. I knew I had to be close. 6 years. I had to be close, and I continued to scrape and scrape and scrape until I hit a wall. Literally, a wall of ledge. I was so angry, I screamed bloody murder. I started to kick the walls of my prison tunnel. I started to punch the ceiling and claw at it until dirt was falling all around me and stones. My hands were clawing at the dirt. I was punching and I was kicking and I was clawing On my hand, it was air. I had broken through to somewhere. It wasn't a large hole, but I could tell that it was pitch black, too dark to be outside. I knew I had to be underneath the prison somewhere, but I didn't know where. I had to be careful. And so I waited. And then I started to scrape away some more, just a little bit at a time, stopping every now and then to listen, not knowing where it was. Until there was just enough space for me to push my body up into that space, into that hole, into the darkness. And I just waited, not knowing where I was. I waited for a long time. And even then, I could only see the perimeter of the room that I was sitting in, and nothing else. Until finally I decided to move. And I started to grope my way through the emptiness, not finding anything until I found the only thing that was there, a small set of wooden stairs. And I started up each step, and with each step and with each of the creaking of the boards, I froze, like a mannequin in a window, waiting to see if someone would pass me by. There were not many stairs, and soon I hit a small door above my head. And I carefully opened it. And I found myself in a room with a chair and a desk and a cross above it. I was in the chaplain's office. And from the window in his office, I saw the prison wall just 12 feet away. 12 feet away! I could have screamed. But I couldn't. Not up here. I found the door to the sanctuary, such that it was, and I went inside. And I crept along the perimeter of the sanctuary, the perimeter of the chapel, making sure to keep low, especially when I went in front of the windows so that the guards wouldn't see my shadow. And I found myself a spot, leaning against the wall, my secret spot, away from prying eyes. I was not free yet, but I could taste it. I could feel it. It was pulsating through my veins. So I continued to ski. The months went by. Every moment I could, I would go up to my secret spot just to think and be alone. And that is where I came up with my brilliant plan to escape. But first, I needed old Ben as a confidant and an accomplice. Old Ben. Old Ben was a prisoner too. He had been in the prison so long that he had lost track of how long it had been. He had been in the prison so long that the warden made him the unofficial assistant. And one of his jobs as this unofficial assistant was when one of the prisoners died. It was his job to go into this cell and take the body out, put it into a simple coffin, and put it into the chapel, up onto 2 benches. In the morning, the warden and old Ben and some of the other prisoners would come, and they'd take the coffin and put it onto a flatbed, horse-drawn carriage. The carriage would then go out of the prison walls, down the hillside, towards the prison cemetery. Nobody ever came for the bodies. Nobody wanted to lay claim to us lepers of society. Once at the gravesite, the warden would say a few words, a prayer, if you will. And then the warden and the other prisoners would go, leaving Ben to cover up the grave. I got work detail in the woodshop where old Ben supervised and where the coffins were made. Seems like I had a knack with wood. And I started to make these death chambers into pieces of art, beautiful pieces of art. And over the months that passed, I gained Ben's confidence until it was time to divulge my plan to him. The next time one of the prisoners died, old Ben would take him out of his cell, just as he always did, and put him into a coffin in the chapel. I would then make my way through my tunnel and into the chapel, and in the morning I would lay myself down on top of that dead man, cover myself up with the cover of that coffin, and I would be taken out of the prison walls. At the graveside, after the warden had said his prayers and left, old Ben would throw a couple of shovels of dirt onto the coffin. And when the warden was well out of sight, old Ben would help me up and I would be free. My plan was so brilliant and so perverse it gave me the chills. Old Ben agreed. He had nothing to lose. And so I waited. Waited for the sound of 13 bells to ring. The only homage they gave to men in this prison. In the meantime, I did my magic in the wood shop, making those coffins just a little bit wider, just a little bit taller. But it seemed like death had other plans elsewhere. Each day, each week, each month that went by stirred a cocktail of agitation and excitement inside of me. I started to scan all the prisoners for the most sickly and the oldest amongst us, making my bets with the devil about who it would be, and seeing if there was any way that I could help them towards their destiny, without causing too much attention to myself, of course. And then it happened. One cold, gray, snowless February day. Boom, 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 13 bells. Let me tell you, my friend, that was the longest day of my life. Now I will tell you that I learned patience on the outside while executing my diabolical plans, but it was being tried in here. But the day did pass, as time will, and night fell quickly on that winter day. They closed the cells for the night, and I put a few things in my pocket that I thought I would need on the other side. A few pieces of rope, matches, a pocket knife, a few scraps of food that I had collected, and I waited some more. Until at 2:30 a.m., I made my way through my tunnel. My heart was beating so loudly, I was sure that it must have reverberated throughout the whole prison. I made my way through my tunnel and up into the cellar of the chapel, making my way in the dark like a mouse through a maze until I got to the stairs and into the office and into the chapel itself and to my secret spot. And in the darkness, I could see the coffin propped up on those two benches. And even though I could not see the beautiful work, I knew that that was the coffin that I had made a beautiful piece of art, my escape vehicle. Some more. I waited until just before the light struck the sky. And then I made my way over to the coffin. And in the darkness, I opened up the cover and I lay myself down on top of that poor sucker who was my ticket out of there. It was cold in the chapel, but colder still lying on top of this corpse. I made sure that the cover was on tightly on top of me. I had planned this ahead. Now, as I said, patience is not my strong point. But I could wait a few more minutes. Eventually, I heard the door open up, the familiar sound of the warden's boots on the wooden floors, the soft-soled shoes of the prisoners, and then a jostling as they lifted the coffin up and carried me out, a blast of cold air as I came outside with a cold February wind, and I landed hard on the wagon outside. The sound of horses' hoofs, the descent down the hill as we went out of the gate, and then we stopped. A gentle rocking as the horses shifted their weights. And then again a jostling as we were lifted up and then landed hard next to the grave. I could hear the straps being shimmied underneath, one on either side, and then an unsettling feeling as if the coffin was going to topple over and the cover was going to come off. But no, we were being lowered down into the ground, me and my dead buddy. We were being lowered down, I could tell, because it was warmer down there, away from the cold February wind. I checked my pockets to make sure that everything was there. I was all set. The mumbling of the warden's voice up above me, and then the sound of his boots and the other feet, and the horse's hoofs leaving, and then, thump, one shovel of dirt on top of my coffin, and a second shovel, and a third, and a fourth, and a fifth, and a sixth. I kept waiting for Ben's voice to call out, telling me it was okay, a hand to reach down and help me out. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Something was terribly wrong. No, there was no room for mistake. 12, 13, 14, 15. Ben, let me out. Let me out, you bastard. I'm going to kill you. Perhaps that was not the best thing to say, but it did not matter what I said, because I learned a long time ago from all the hours I spent in my tunnel, when you are underground, nobody can hear you. 17, 18, 19, 20. The dirt covered the coffin like a blanket of death, my heart beating louder and louder, my voice, my breath full of the moisture of life hitting me in the face as it bounced off the dead man below me, using up what little oxygen I had. Ben, how could you betray me? I realized what had happened. I reached into my pocket and I took out a match and lit it on the cover. And I stared into the cold, dead face of old Ben himself. Woo!